Salut, I'm Jennifer, your French teacher in the south of France. Let's talk about what happens to some articles after different forms of negation. Some articles, not all articles. I'm going to show you 5 important rules. First, let's talk about the indefinite articles un and une. These articles change to de or sometimes d apostrophe if it's followed by a vowel when following negation. This happens almost all of the time, so make sure you stick around until the last rule, and I'll tell you an exception. The 5 rules that I'm showing you are simple rules, but there are 5 of them, so it's not always easy to remember all of them. I get that. So the examples that I'm showing you in this lesson are quite simple. Tu as un chat noir et blanc? Tu as un chat noir et blanc? So that just means, do you have a black and white cat? Un means a because chat is masculine. The answer to that question would be, je n'ai pas de chat noir et blanc. Je n'ai pas de chat noir et blanc. You see, I'm using the negation ne pas, and the word un changes to de. In English, it still means I don't have a black and white cat. So that's the tricky part. In English, in this example, anyway, the word un, or I should say, doesn't change at all. So you have to remember the rule. The second rule I want to show you is that partitive articles also change to de, or d apostrophe. Partitive articles are du, de la, de, and de l apostrophe. The example I have for you is an avoir expression, avoir de la chance, which means to be lucky. Tu as de la chance. Tu as de la chance. That means you're lucky, and a direct translation would be you have some luck. It might be helpful to look at it that way, even though we don't say it like that in English, so that you can see that de la, the partitive, actually means some in English. A possible negative response to the statement tu as de la chance might be je n'ai jamais de chance. Je n'ai jamais de chance. Here I'm using the negative expression ne jamais instead of just the plain old ne pas. Je n'ai jamais de chance. So you can see that tu as de la chance, de la changes just to de. Why? Because we're following negation. I'm never lucky. And a literal translation, I never have any luck. Now here we are in luck because you can see the word in English changes from some to any. So in the first rule, I told you that doesn't always change. Remember that one about having a black and white cat? And I said, I don't have a black and white cat. Well, in that case, just still remained in English, even with the negation. But here we have a very good opportunity to see that this actually happens in English sometimes as well. The third rule is that definite articles, and by that I mean le, la, and les, they do not change after negation. And this can get tricky. Sometimes my students are like, now, wait a minute, Jennifer, you just told me that we have to change articles to de after negation. Not all articles. Definite articles do not change. Okay, the example I have for the definite articles is tu as entendu les oiseaux chanter? Tu as entendu les oiseaux chanter? This example is in the passé composé. Okay, so that's why it says tu as entendu. I'm using the definite article les. Did you hear the birds singing? Or we might say, did you hear the birds chirping? So les is the, and it's plural. A possible answer to that question using negation would be je n'ai pas entendu les oiseaux chanter. Je n'ai pas entendu les oiseaux. Je n'ai pas entendu les oiseaux chanter. Oh la la. Now listen, you could also say, because I have some students who really like to use that pretty liaison and make French sound super nice, you could say, je n'ai pas entendu les oiseaux chanter. And that sounds good, making that liaison between pas entendu. You definitely have to make the liaison with les oiseaux. Les oiseaux. It sounds good, doesn't it? All right, back to the lesson. Je n'ai pas entendu les oiseaux chanter. Here I'm using negation, but les does not change to de or d apostrophe here. In English, I did not hear the birds singing or chirping. In the fourth rule, we're going to talk about verbs of preference. What are verbs of preference? I'm talking about to like, to love, to prefer, to adore, to hate, aimer, adorer, détester, préférer, all of those. With verbs of preference, you need to use definite articles. So they do not change after negation. And that's always true for definite articles. Here's my example using a verb of preference followed by a definite article. Tu aimes le chocolat au lait? Tu aimes le chocolat au lait? That just means, do you like milk chocolate? Doesn't mean do you like chocolate milk? That's a different thing. Do you like milk chocolate? Le chocolat au lait. So remember, you wouldn't say tu aimes du chocolat au lait. No, 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 no. Why? Verb of preference. And the response that I've chosen to show you is once again in the passé composé so that you can see the placement of the negative expression when using the passé composé. I have never liked milk chocolate. Je n'ai jamais aimé le chocolat au lait. Je n'ai jamais aimé le chocolat au lait. You have an option, jamais aimé or jamais aimé, if you want to sound very elegant. Le does not change to de. Why? You know why by now, because it's a definite article. Your fifth and final rule is an exception alert, and it's about the verb être. When you are using the verb être, no changes need to be made to un, une, or any of the partitive articles. Here's your example. C'est un chien méchant. C'est un chien méchant. That's a mean dog. That is a mean dog. It could also mean this is a mean dog. It depends on the context, okay? C'est un, so the est, that's your verb être, just like is the verb to be in English. C'est un chien méchant. Un means a. In the response, you'll see what I mean by this being an exception. Ce n'est pas un chien méchant. Ce n'est pas un chien méchant. That is not a mean dog. Or remember, this is not a mean dog. I'm using negation, ne pas, and it's followed by un. But since I'm using the verb être, I do not change un to de or d apostrophe. If you're watching this lesson in my French course for self-learners, pretty soon you're going to be moving on to a set of 75 practice cards, and you might want to keep your study guide handy. And there's also a longer video where I go into more depth and give you more explanations about all of this. If you do not have my French course for self-learners, then maybe you want to check it out.